I hasten to point out that if this theory proves correct, that the Antichrist will use personalized microchips to implement his sovereignty over mankind, the chip itself is not the mark of the beast. The mark, rather, is the inevitable baggage that goes with it, the oath of allegiance, whatever form it takes, to the world ruler and the God he serves. It's entirely possible that the mark will be implemented with different technologies in different regions, depending on varying states of infrastructure development. The universal problem will be that you can't get the physical mark, whether a chip, tattoo, or some unforeseen mechanism, without kissing the devil on the lips. Yahweh knows we're easily fooled. That's why he calls us sheep. He won't hold tribulation believers accountable to be clever enough to see through a plan that on the surface promises merely to facilitate commerce and stifle crime, but is really a satanic plot to take over the world, a plot known only to a handful of evil and powerful men. No, God never called us to paranoia or even to insight, only to faithfulness. The deal will be clear. Receive the mark and align yourself with Lucifer and his lapdog, lap beast, or stand with the true and living God and be prepared to run for your life. By the way, don't be too impressed that Satan should come up with such a clever scheme as the mark of the beast, requiring submission to himself and the dragon he serves as a precondition for the right to live one's life in peace. As usual, a search of the Scriptures reveals that the mark is actually something Yahweh implemented first, thousands of years ago, if only in a prophet's vision. For Satan, it's merely one more phony in a long string of pathetic counterfeits. Ezekiel writes,
Then he, Yahweh, called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, Let those who have charge over the city draw near, each with a deadly weapon in his hand. And suddenly 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle-axe in his hand. One man among them was clothed with linen, and had a writer's inkhorn at his side.
Here's God's 6+1 pattern again.
They went in and stood beside the bronze altar. Now the glory of God of Yisrael had gone up from the cherub, where it had been, to the threshold of the temple. And he called to the man clothed with linen, who had the writer's inkhorn at his side. And Yahweh said to him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads of men who sigh and cry over the abominations that are done within it.
I believe this one, who was to judge men's heart and apply the mark of Yahweh, represents Yahshua himself.
To the others he said in my hearing, Go after them through the city and kill. Do not let your eye spare, or have any pity. Utterly slay old and young men, maidens, and little children, and women. But do not come near anyone on whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders, who were before the temple. And he said to them, Defile the temple, and fill the courts with the slain. Go out. And they went out, and killed in the city. Ezekiel 9, 1-7.
Ezekiel's vision, which spans chapters 8 through 11, speaks of the idolatry into which Israel had fallen, gross idol worship, chapter 8, verse 10, weeping for Tammuz, 8:14, and bowing to the sun, 8:16. Those who
sigh and cry over the abominations
are marked
on the foreheads,
and are thereby put under the protection of God. I get the impression that there aren't too many of them. Is it a literal, visible mark? I have no idea. Ezekiel was having a vision when he saw it, and Zeke saw some really weird stuff in visions. The same thing, of course, is true of John's description in Revelation. All we know for sure is that the mark is real. It has consequences. The idolaters that Ezekiel sees are then put to the sword, axe, by men coming from the north. The prophecy was fulfilled in the near term by the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar. Note that the marked men are not expected to force the others to follow the true God or adhere to a strict code of outward moral uprightness. Rather, they are characterized by their weeping for the sins of their nation, crying out to Yahweh because of the abominations they see engulfing their people. When's the last time your cheeks got wet because you were in anguish over the sins of your nation? The Antichrist, mimicking God, intends to
utterly slay old and young men, maidens and little children, and women, but not come near anyone on whom is the mark.
And he will indeed have a certain amount of success in persecuting the tribulation saints, as we shall see. But Satan is not Yahweh, and the Antichrist is not Yahshua. Where God's mark indicates salvation leading to life, Satan's mark says dead man walking. In the end, that's all anyone really needs to know about it. But Yahweh provided one more bit of information, something designed to help believers living in those dark times verify or confirm that the system to which they're being told to ascribe is actually the mark of the beast and not some quasi-innocent look-alike or precursor like the Social Security system.
Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Revelation 13:18.
For almost 2 millennia now, everybody and his idiot nephew has taken the 666 ball and run with it. The theories are as numerous as the stars of the sky and the sand which is on the seashore. And some of them, I must admit, are creative to the point of genius. That's not to say they're correct, but they sure are imaginative. Because the number is said to somehow correlate to a name, though we aren't told how, the theories invariably revolve around number codes of one sort or another. The obvious starting point is that neither Hebrew nor Greek alphabets with which the Bible was composed have numbers per se. Instead, letters of the regular alphabet are pressed into service as numbers. The context tells you if you're dealing with numbers or letters spelling out a word. This is evidently harder than it sounds, especially in the Hebrew, since there are many places where the Masoretic text and the corresponding Septuagint translations disagree in their rendering of numerals, leading us to the conclusion that there may be more cultural baggage attached to the process of sorting out these numbers than we'd like to think. The Greek for 666, or as the King James words it, 666, is 3 Greek characters, chi, xi, stigma. Chi's numerical equivalent is 600. Xi is 60, and stigma, which is an obsolete letter used only as a number in Koine Greek, not to be confused with sigma, represents 6. It's interesting, but not terribly significant, that the word stigma in Greek means a brand, mark, spot, or colored patch. Hence, in English, we describe a mark of infamy or a token of disgrace as a stigma. Funk and Wagnalls says that stigma was formerly used to denote a brand made with a branding iron on slaves or criminals. Coincidence? Okay, if you say so. Another possibility is latent in the fact that in the earliest Greek manuscripts of Revelation, the chi, xi, stigma mark was scribed with a horizontal line above it, indicating that it is a code or placeholder of some sort. It has been pointed out by scholars fluent in Arabic that viewed sideways, this mark bears a remarkable resemblance to the written name of Allah. There's something to ponder. Because of this letter equals number system, some researchers have made a contact sport out of discerning hidden meaning in sets of Hebrew words that add up to the same numbers, or numbers related in some way, such as sums of their squares. They call this process gematria. Using this or similar formulas in other languages, people with an axe to grind have discovered 666 in a wide variety of names and titles. Not surprisingly, many identify the Pope or the Catholic Church as the Antichrist with this method, finding 666 within such Greek titles as Latinos, which means Latin-speaking man, He Latine Basilia, the Latin kingdom, or Italica Ecclesia, the Italian church. Catholic buzzwords in Latin get the same treatment. Vicarius Filii Dei, substitution for the Son of God, a title for the Pope. Dux Cleri, captain of the clergy, and Ludovicus, the vicar of the court, all add up to 666 in Roman numerals. In Hebrew, it's the same song. Romieth, meaning Roman kingdom, and Romitai, Roman man, both come out to 666. I didn't figure this out, of course. All of these solutions have been around for centuries, and I'm not suggesting they shed any real light on the identity of the Antichrist. They're only included to demonstrate that with a little ingenuity, you can find 666 in almost anything. A few cases in point. If you start with A equals 100, B equals 101, etc., Hitler comes out to 666. Of course, the only conceivable reason for starting to number the English alphabet at 100 is to make Hitler add up to 666. For that matter, if you use the same formula and multiply the result by 2, because he has twice as many legs, it turns out my cat, Mo, is the Antichrist, a theory that's not altogether unreasonable if you know my cat. My personal favorite, if you convert their names to Hebrew letter number equivalents, both William Jefferson Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton add up to 666. Maybe that would explain the treachery of the Clinton-sponsored anti-Israel Oslo Accords of the mid-90s. No. Is gematria therefore worthless? As a means of predicting who the Antichrist will be, most definitely. As a means of verifying his identity once he shows up and starts fulfilling prophecy? Maybe not. Computer-generated ELS, or equidistant letter sequence, tables have revealed some significant confirmations hidden in the Hebrew text, and the really remarkable thing about them is their close proximity to each other and to plain text passages that support them. Also to be found are many such things as half a dozen words relating unmistakably to the September 11th disaster in the same place, or the names of quite a few influential rabbis in close proximity to their dates of birth and death. We need to use the brains God gave us in interpreting these things. They prove only that the God who inspired their placement in his Torah exists outside of the bounds of time as we know it, and he's interested in us knowing that fact. But as a means of divining the future, these things are useless, even dangerous. I would, however, hasten to point out that the rabbis' dates of death, not merely their births, were embedded in the text. It's as if Yahweh is saying, don't follow these men. They're all dead. If you want to live, follow me. I live forever. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised to find that somehow the Antichrist's name or title calculates out to 666. I say his title, as opposed to his given name, could qualify as the key to the 666 conundrum, because the Greek word used for name in passages like,
"No one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name," Revelation 13:17.
Onoma means, according to Strong's, name, either literally or figuratively, the authority or character, called, surname. Your onoma, then, is simply what you are called. As a case in point, the reigning Yahshua's title is called his name.
And he has on his robe and on his thigh a name.
That's onoma.
Written, King of Kings, Master of Masters. Revelation 19:16.